Welcome to Mind Twist Horror, where true stories echo in the dark, and some nightmares don't stay buried. Story 1. The Attic Drip. It started with a stain. Just a faint ring of brown on the ceiling above the couch. The couple living there, Daniel and Bree, figured it was just a leaky pipe. The house was old, after all, and Oregon nights had been damp for weeks. But the stain didn't stay the same. Sometimes it darkened, sometimes it shifted. One night, Daniel swore he heard something up there. Not a creak, but movement. Shifting weight. He brushed it off. Until the morning Bree said she'd heard something too, like slow breathing. Above the ceiling fan. So he climbed into the attic. The wooden ladder groaned under his weight. He carried a flashlight in one hand, and a wrench in the other. Half expecting to smack a broken pipe or a raccoon. But what he found was someone's setup. Not an animal. Not damage. But a nest. There was a small, rolled-out mattress pad, covered in crumbs. 2 empty fast food bags, one from a burger joint that had closed months ago. A flashlight with dying batteries. And a pile of hair. Human. Long tangled. In the corner, a plastic jug, half full of something yellow. And on the beam above the vent, scratched into the wood, were words. She cries after he sleeps. He leaves at 8. Comes back by 6. Tonight, I'll touch her hair. Daniel nearly fell down the ladder. He didn't even speak, just pointed when Bree came running. The police believed someone had entered the house weeks earlier. Most likely during their housewarming party, when all the windows were open. He never left. He lived above them. Watched them sleep. Listened to every word. And waited for the right night to come down. Sometimes, the leak isn't water. It's someone, waiting to drip through. Story 2. The boy who liked the closet. She started hearing it at night. A soft, breathy noise. Like someone struggling to breathe through the wall behind her headboard. It happened when the house was still, around 2 or 3 a.m. She'd turn down the TV. And it would stop. At first, she blamed the pipes. Old Chicago homes make sounds, especially in winter. She told herself it was the heater, or a draft, or her imagination. But her dog, a black lab named Moose, wasn't so sure. One night, he woke her up. Low growling. Tail stiff. Ears pointed straight at the closet. She got up, flipped on the lamp, and told him to relax. But he kept barking. Not at the door. At the closet wall. She walked over, annoyed, still half asleep, and opened the closet. That's when she noticed something strange. The back panel was warped, like it had been pried loose and gently snapped back into place. She pulled at the edges. The wood came away like a flap, and behind it, instead of insulation or drywall, there was a narrow, pitch-black gap. A crawlspace between the bedroom wall and the outer structure. Just wide enough for someone to hide. She dropped the panel. Slammed the closet door. And called 911. The police arrived 15 minutes later. What they found inside the wall was a teenage boy, curled in a crouch, knees to his chest. Watching through a tiny crack in the plaster directly behind her bed. He was pale. Thin. Wearing a hoodie. There was a backpack beside him with snacks, water bottles, and a flashlight with dying batteries. He didn't fight. Didn't even speak, until they asked him why he was there. I just wanted to be near her, he said. She's the only one who never locked her window. He'd been living there for almost 3 months. Slipping in at night, crawling into the wall, watching her sleep. Leaving before dawn to walk around the neighborhood like he belonged. No one knew his real name. His parents had kicked him out over a year ago. He said he found her by accident. And once he got inside, he realized how easy it was to stay. Some people knock when they want to come in. Others just wait until you're asleep. Story 3. The air vent toothbrush. He didn't notice it right away. It started with the toothbrush being out of place. He'd set it down on the right side of the sink every night, but by morning, it'd be on the left. Standing straight up. Still damp. And the bristles felt used. He lived alone. No roommates. No visitors. Just a small one-bedroom apartment in Atlanta with a cracked bathroom mirror and an old, metal air vent above the sink that always whined in the winter. He thought maybe he was imagining it. But then his toothpaste started disappearing. Not rapidly. Just a little less each day. Enough to notice the squeeze line shifting forward. Even though he hadn't used it. Still, he told himself it was forgetfulness. Until the night he went to bed with a full tube, and woke up to find it uncapped. The nozzle bitten. And a smear of white paste across the bathroom tile. That's when he decided to set up his phone. He turned on the video camera, propped it between two towels, and left it recording overnight, pointed directly at the mirror and sink. The next morning, he opened the file. It was just static silence for the first few hours. Until 2:46 a.m. That's when he saw it. A hand, pale, slow-moving, crept down from the air vent above the sink. It paused, fingers twitching, then gripped the toothbrush by the handle. The fingers shook slightly, like they hadn't held anything in a long time. The hand withdrew into the vent. Seconds later, it came back. Holding the toothbrush again. This time, it placed it down slowly. Gently. Like it was trying not to be caught. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he called the police, and waited outside. When they arrived, they unscrewed the metal vent above the sink. And inside the duct, hunched in the darkness, was a man. Naked. Malnourished. Breathing shallow. His skin was gray with dust. His fingernails were broken and blackened. He was sleeping in a bed of old insulation. Next to a torn backpack filled with granola bar wrappers, toilet paper, and a stolen razor. They had to pull him out with gloves. He didn't resist, just whispered two things. "I'm not dangerous. I drink the drip water." He'd been living there for almost a year. Climbing through the vent system from another unit's utility closet, one that had been boarded up for renovations. No one noticed the crawlspace access hadn't been sealed. He lived off condensation from pipes, scraps of food he scavenged at night, and whatever he could take without being noticed. But he never left the building. Next time something goes missing from your bathroom, check the vent. Someone might be watching, waiting for you to sleep. Story 4. The crib camera. They were new parents. Living in a quiet, older house in New Jersey. The kind with creaking floors, low ceilings, and pipes that always made noise at night. Their daughter had just turned 5 months old. But lately, she wouldn't sleep. Every night at 2:13 a.m., almost to the minute. She'd wake up screaming. No fever. No wet diaper. Just pure, terrified crying. They tried white noise. Lullabies. Switching the crib to a different corner of the room. But it didn't help. So they ordered a baby monitor, one with night vision and audio. Something that could record, just in case there was something they were missing. The first few nights showed nothing. Just the usual tossing, the crying, the parent stumbling in half asleep to soothe her. But then came night 6. Around 2:15 a.m., the camera picked up a soft movement. Not from the crib. From the wall directly behind it. At first, it looked like a shadow. Then something shifted in the paneling. A small square of the wall slid open, revealing a face. Only part of it. A pair of eyes. Staring silently through the hole. Watching the baby. No blinking. No movement. Just watching. The baby screamed, louder than usual. And the face disappeared. The panel slid shut. The recording ended. They didn't sleep the rest of the night. Didn't go back in the room. The father took the baby and sat in the living room with a baseball bat until sunrise. The next morning, they pulled the crib away and tore the drywall open with a crowbar. Behind it, they found a hollow chamber. Roughly 4 feet wide, a kind of crawlspace built between the walls during early construction. Inside it was old insulation, scratch marks, and a trail of broken-off candy wrappers. And at the far end, a narrow hole, cut by hand, leading down into the basement. They called the police. Officers searched the entire house, including the basement, attic, and every crawlspace. They found drag marks in the dust below. A path someone had used recently. But they never found the person. No prints. No sleeping bag. No food. Just a single, dirty handprint on the inside of the wall where the crib used to be. They moved out 2 weeks later. Took nothing but what they could fit in their car. The new owners tore the place apart. Bricked over the crawlspace. Rewired the nursery. But some nights, the motion light still turns on in the basement. Baby monitors don't just let you see who's watching. Sometimes, they show you who's watching back. Story 5. The tenant who never left. The house had been vacant for almost 6 months. It sat on a dusty road just outside Austin, Texas, one of those cheap properties inherited from a distant relative no one really liked. The landlord, a man named Curtis, finally decided to prep it for renters. It was a simple job: clean up, check the plumbing, list it online. He arrived late in the afternoon and parked around back. The gate was closed. All the doors locked. No signs of a break-in. But the moment he stepped inside, something felt off. The place wasn't trashed. It wasn't looted. But it wasn't empty either. The fridge was full. Frozen dinners. Bottled water. A pack of bologna and a half-empty bottle of mustard. The toilet seat was up. Still wet. Someone had used it, recently. And in the hallway bathroom mirror, written in soap, was a message. "I live here now." It wasn't smeared. It wasn't faded. It looked fresh. Curtis backed out of the house and called the police. When they arrived, they swept the place room by room. Nothing. No one hiding. No signs of forced entry. Until they opened the pantry door. At first glance, it looked normal. Shelves. Cleaning supplies. A mop. But one of the wooden panels behind the shelves didn't sit flush. An officer leaned in, tapped it. Hollow. They pried it loose. Behind the false wall was a narrow, hand-dug tunnel, cutting through insulation, dust, and the wooden beams of the house's inner structure. It was barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. Inside it, they found a blanket rolled into a nest. Dozens of empty water bottles. A journal without a cover. A pile of neatly chewed toothpicks. And carved into the wood beside the tunnel mouth, 146 tally marks. Each one scratched deep, uneven. One for every night. No one knows how they got in. The locks had been changed. The windows all latched from the inside. There were no spare keys missing. The theory? They came in while it was first being vacated. Maybe the original owner never noticed. And when everyone left, They stayed. They lived silently, inside the walls. Sleeping during the day. Coming out at night. Shopping. Cooking. Existing, in someone else's home. Police never found who did it. But the next week, Curtis went back with contractors to patch up the hole. The tunnel was gone. But something new had been scrawled beside the tally marks, in what looked like a dull red crayon. You found the first tunnel. Not the last. Some tenants don't pay rent. They don't ask permission. They just find a crack in your life. And move in. Story 6. The face in the floor. The sound started on a Wednesday night. Faint, like dragging fabric or fingernails over wood. The family, a husband, wife, and their 2 kids, lived in a single wide trailer on the edge of a dry, open field in Utah. No neighbors for miles. No street lights. Just the kind of quiet where you hear your own heartbeat in the walls. They thought it was mice at first. Or maybe raccoons nesting beneath the floorboards. But it didn't sound like animals. It sounded like movement. Slow. Intentional. A shuffle. Then silence. Then a low knock, from beneath the floor. The dad crawled under the trailer the next morning but didn't see anything unusual. Just dirt. Pipes. Some trash that had probably blown in. But that night, around 2 a.m., the sound returned. This time, it wasn't just dragging. It was breathing. Heavy. Slow. Coming from the vent in the hallway floor. The family stopped sleeping. The kids refused to go into their rooms. The parents were convinced it was all stress, until the mother saw something that finally made her believe it. She walked into the living room to grab her charger. And she saw the vent cover slightly lifted. And a hand slowly lower it back down from underneath. She screamed. Her husband ran in. They yanked the vent open, but saw nothing but darkness. So they came up with an idea. They taped a phone to a string, turned on the flashlight and camera, and lowered it into the vent, recording the entire crawlspace beneath the trailer. They didn't watch the footage right away. Too scared. They waited until the next morning. Sat at the kitchen table with their coffee, hands shaking. They hit play. The video showed darkness. Dust. Wires. Then, something moved. The light swept over a pile of blankets. An empty can of beans. And then, from the shadows, a face emerged. Pale. Greasy. Staring directly at the camera. It smiled. Just for a second. Then crawled backward, out of view. They called the police immediately. When authorities arrived and opened up the subfloor from the back, they found evidence that someone had been living there for at least 3 weeks. Trash. A blanket. Bottles. Cans. And a notebook, wrapped in plastic. Inside were pages of disturbing pencil drawings. Each one was a detailed sketch of the family. The kids. The parents. The dog. All of them, asleep. Seen from above. From inside their rooms. From inside the vents. One of the drawings had writing scrawled across the bottom. I'll come out when I'm part of the family. They never caught him. But the police believe he had a key. That he may have been inside the trailer multiple times. And that he only crawled back into the floor when they were home. The family moved out a week later. But the trailer's still there. And sometimes, in the silence of those Utah nights, people swear they can hear the floor creak. As something shifts underneath. Story 7. The wall said her name. They moved into the house in the middle of a heat wave. Florida summer. Humid. Still. Everything felt too quiet, like the whole block was holding its breath. It was a one-story ranch home with peeling white siding, surrounded by dying palm trees and crooked fences. They got it cheap, too cheap, her dad said. But they needed it. The girl, her name was Lily, was 12. She picked the back bedroom, the one with the window that faced the woods. She liked that it was furthest from everyone else. For the first few nights, everything was normal. Boxes unpacked. School supplies arranged. She slept soundly, until night 4. That's when she heard it. A voice. Soft. From the wall behind her headboard. Too soft to make out at first, like breath caught in drywall. She pulled the covers over her head. By the end of the week, the voice got louder. And this time, it said her name. Lily. Whispered again. Lily. Every night. Always around 3:17 a.m. No matter what time she fell asleep, she always woke up just before the whisper came. Her parents didn't believe her. Said it was stress. New school. New environment. Even the therapist said the mind plays tricks during change. So one night, Lily decided to test it. She took a piece of notebook paper, wrote a single word on it, stop, and slipped it behind her tall wooden bookshelf, which was screwed into the wall. She left the light on that night. Didn't sleep. Just listened. The wall stayed quiet. Until 3:17 a.m. The whisper came back, but slower. Lily, stop. The next morning, she woke up and screamed. Because that same piece of paper, the one she'd written, stop, on, was now resting on her pillow. And under it was a second note. Different handwriting. Thin, shaky ink. Barely legible. It said, "Tell them I'm still hungry." Her parents finally listened. They called the police. Investigators came out, removed the bookshelf, and found something that hadn't been in the floor plans. A narrow corridor behind the wall. Someone had hollowed out the insulation years ago, likely during old renovations, to create a tight passageway that ran the length of the hallway. They found bits of fabric. Broken toys. A moldy teddy bear. A used fork. And on the drywall, where Lily's bed had pressed up against the wall, they found tiny teeth marks. Some fresh. Some much older. No one was inside. But the evidence suggested someone had been living in that crawlspace recently. The scariest part? There was no way in or out from the outside. The only way to access the wall was from inside the house. They never found out who, or what, had been behind the wall. But Lily never slept in that room again. And when they moved out 6 months later, the next family didn't last 2 weeks. If this disturbed you, there's more waiting behind the walls. Subscribe to Mind Twist Horror for true scary stories you won't for.